welcome to the Hopeless Podcast. My name is Delphia. I'm your host today, and joining me is our two regulars, Jason and Joseph. So welcome again, guys.
Hey.
Thank you.
Oh, and so exciting. We're in season 3 now. First episode. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm excited. 2022, new beginnings.
Mm-hmm. And what did you say we're going to look at this season, Joseph?
The theme for the season, similarities.
Yes. So we've got an interesting topic today, and it's the effect of loneliness in Australian perspectives. So we're going to be having a look at that. And what do you guys think about the topic? Jason, what do you think?
Loneliness is bad, but I didn't know it was having an effect. So it'd be interesting to sort of dig into the topic and find out a bit more about how it isn't affecting people. It is affecting people.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Joseph?
I think it's a prominent topic, something that is real and that's happening in the world today, especially in Australia, because quite recently, as of today, we've had some more cases of COVID around Australia. So I think that as we touch on this topic, we can raise awareness and bring hope to the hopeless. Hopeless podcast, question mark.
Yeah, definitely. And here in Western Australia, we've been quite blessed. There was a positive case here, but otherwise there's no lockdown, just mask mandates. And we can basically get on with our lives. But sadly, Victoria and New South Wales are finding it a bit more difficult with, thousands of cases coming in a day, and Melbourne being the most locked down city in the world. So
I'm gonna say that, like Melbourne's probably got more. If there's a connection between lockdown and loneliness, Melbourne being the most locked down city, it's probably got the most loneliness. Do you think?
More than likely. I know that a lot of people are upset about all the lockdowns there, and they really had enough. I've mentioned it a few times that my mum and I were over there for 3 months because of all the lockdowns, and then Western Australia is like, no way, you guys coming back. So they want to keep their own safe. So we were excluded because we somehow betrayed our state and went over to Victoria. But loneliness is probably something that has become more popular. That sounds bad, but it's been more prominent in the last few years, and maybe people have different views that maybe it's always been around and it's always been quite prominent, but only recently has it been documented, and people have been saying about it more and I guess sharing. What do you guys think, Joseph?
Joseph is thinking.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you think that loneliness has always been around, or is it something more prominent within the last few decades? Or even the last decade?
No, I don't think loneliness, in my opinion, I don't think loneliness has increased, decreased. I think it could be at the same level as it was. A few factors to my own personal opinion would be because, one, a population increase, two, the internet and being more connected, three, because of being more internet connected and thinking that being on the internet you have a connection with more people, you normally would have less of a connection. Because of that, there can be more reports and more studies to be done to show that, hey, I'm feeling lonely, hey, I'm feeling more depressed. But people couldn't express these during 50, 100 years ago when these studies weren't even being tested in the first place. So that's a little bit about my personal opinion.
Well, Joseph, I respect your opinion, and I think it's to be applauded, really, because there is so much more that we're learning now about loneliness and how people are monitoring that. Before, maybe there was no way of monitoring, there was no way of knowing But I believe that loneliness is increasing simply because the structure of society is changing so much that, there are more lonely people. And I guess, maybe first we have to look at, what loneliness is, like what the definition of loneliness is. Then we can go, well, yeah, there are probably more lonely people based on that definition. So I don't know, how would you guys define loneliness? Have you been lonely? I mean, you're alone, but sometimes you're not lonely,
Yeah.
There's a difference there. Some people enjoy their own company. Just want to, they're a loner, but not lonely.
Yeah.
So how would you define loneliness?
I think like people can be surrounded by others and still be lonely, and they could be by themselves and not be lonely. So I think it's probably personal need as to your connection with people, like,
Yeah.
and the value, I guess, that you place in relationships, because there's some people who will be surrounded by people, but they don't feel a connection with them. They don't value the relationship. So I know that for some people that I know, for me, my relationship with them, if it stayed or if it went, it wouldn't really bother me.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's a shame that if they left, but like, there's nothing, really in it. There's no real value. There's no real connection for me in those relationships. So for me, it's just like, if they left, I would be fine. I could be alone and not be lonely. But then take away someone who I have got a connection with and someone who I really value, and I'm going to feel lonely. So I think it's the connection and the meaning that you have in that relationship that either makes you lonely or not lonely.
To me, that kind of sounds like the definition of friends. If you
Friends.
value them, they're your friend. If you don't value them, they're not your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
sometimes you just go and put the term friend on an acquaintance who you've known for a very long time.
That's the thing, right? In today's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever else world, we've got a lot of friends, but there's no value. There's no real value in a lot of those friendships, As Delphia said, there's no real connection. So people you can have 5,000 friends or 4,999, because I don't think Facebook allows you to have 5,000. But still, no connection.
Yeah.
And the Oxford Dictionary defines loneliness as sadness because one has no friends or company.
Yeah.
And again, that company is connection. Friends again spell connection. So
Yeah, but did you see there the first definition, sadness, because one has no friends or company? It's a feeling, it's a choice. It's your feeling. It's not their feeling, is it?
your friends
Yeah.
don't. Yes,
Yeah, because it's a feeling. It's your feeling.
yeah.
If you if you get up on the wrong side of the bed one day, or if someone hands you $1 million, are you going to feel sad or are you going to feel happy? It's like your choice. Like, are you going to value that $1 million if you're in the desert and there's a 1 cup of water? You would go for that 1 cup of water. That's what you'll be happy towards. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think you can choose. It's a choice to be lonely. It's a choice to be happy.
Wow, that's a pretty huge statement there, Julie.
I guess it's... Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I think some people would say, no, I wouldn't choose to be lonely. I wouldn't choose to be happy. Sometimes your feelings can be out of your control. Just like depression. Depressions, people's feelings can get out of control. Situations sometimes can place your feelings outside of your control. And so a lot of people wouldn't choose to be happy, a lot of people wouldn't choose to be lonely if they had a choice.
I understand that. There's the number 2 that you didn't read in the Google definition for Oxford languages is of a place, the quality of being unfrequented and remote and isolation. So I definitely agree. You can be stuck in the middle of the jungle, desert, or place where there's actually nobody there but yourself. And yeah, you don't have a choice. Oh, I'm not lonely anymore because I choose to be. You actually are lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But as you said, Delphia, you can be in a group of people and still feel lonely. And I think that's your choice. And I think that as growing up, as a young person surrounded by technology, influences of worldly things, people, and different influences, I think one can be brought up in a way that I can't tolerate not being connected to someone on Snapchat, on Facebook. If I'm not this, or if I'm not this, I'm suddenly lonely.
yeah,
You need to, I think there's a way in you being brought up that, if I'm okay with not being stuck on my phone. And then when I go into a group of people, I can suddenly not feel lonely, and I can have that connection because I don't know what's a deeper connection more than just this. I think there's people that grow up just like that. And then because that's all they know, suddenly they get hit with depression and they can't overcome that because they haven't built up the tolerance when they were a child, or like when they were younger, to overcome just that simple situation.
maybe that's that could be one of the problems. Why I think this generation, this time that we're experiencing a pandemic of loneliness, and it's because people haven't built up that tolerance. People don't know how to cope by not having some sort of mental stimulation all the time, being connected to their friends. Some people don't find any real connection in a group unless they are the center of attraction. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They need to be in the middle. People need to be talking about them and to them. And that's how they find their connection with people being connected to them. But what if this is a new thing, the idea of now the narcissistic, it is a narcissistic tendency to actually want to be the center of attention all the time. What if this is something that has been promulgated by the social media, world that we've now, entered into, where, you have to share a picture of your food every time you eat something, or, you have to share a picture of what you look like, what you're doing, all these different kind of things to actually feel like you're connected to someone. And again, it goes like the word feeling as well, because there's a difference between social isolation and loneliness, right? Because you gave a really good example of someone being out in the jungle, maybe an archaeologist doing work and all these kind of things. You may be alone, but not necessarily lonely. Do you know what I mean? So is there a difference between social isolation and loneliness? Because both of these can have a negative effect on your mental and physical health, both of these. But how do we know the difference between what's social isolation and loneliness? I mean, we've looked at loneliness, but how about social isolation?
I think you can take that into another way of, like, you can ask yourself the question, have you been lonely? Have I experienced loneliness ever? And we all can say yes. Or am I wrong? Have you?
Yeah, I did. I almost burnt the house.
I just had to double check. It's not just me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just me.
Or have you guys, as I said before, have you guys been surrounded by people but been lonely? Like, I don't know, like, as I was saying to you guys before, it's like, I have been in a really big gathering, like there was people, I was talking to people, but then for me, I kind of get, a bit like, I can't be in here all the time. So I actually went to like the side and was just like standing there watching everybody and not talking to anyone.
Yeah.
And it was like, I kind of felt sad because like everyone's having a great time. And then I'm just there like, I love people, but then at the same time, I hate people. And sometimes I don't know how to deal with people. Other times I know how to deal with people.
Hate's a strong word.
Well, like, sometimes I don't.
Hate is beyond anger.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Sometimes I don't want to be around people. Okay, I'll go and correct myself there. I'll use proper English. Sometimes I don't like being around people and I just want to be by myself and just watch people. And it's like, then I go place myself where I could get lonely because I'm not going out there and socializing.
Well, there are people that, you see them in a social event and they're sitting on their phone. Are you one of those people that, you rather be connected to your...
Not the phone. I'll just watch people. Like, I probably look like a creep because I'll literally just be sitting there and observing people going and interacting with others.
Realize it.
Yeah. But like not analyzing in a bad way, like, oh, like they're a creep because I'm a creep. It's just like, oh, look at how that mother is interacting with her child. And you're watching like a mum and child group, and like the way that some ladies interact with their kids. And then you've got like, I remember seeing one mum and she was like really with her kids. She was going and showing it stuff. I'm like, that's a good mum. She's going and spending time with her child. Anyway, it's kind of getting off topic, but
yeah, a bit of side tangent. But if we can maybe bring this back to like a biblical base.
I think that's where Delphia was going with that in terms of the, like watching people. I mean, is there anyone in the Bible that you think of that's experienced that sort of, perspective?
That's really interesting because in my worship last night, I'm going through the book of Psalms, and Psalms is like an amazing book. Like, I would really recommend people read it because it goes like David had so many struggles, but then he was able to find help in God and strength in God through all of that. And in Psalm 102, I believe it was like verse 8, or it may have been verse 7, where he says like that he just watched and he was like a sparrow alone upon the housetop. So he's just like, he's watching and he's like, I'm all alone. Like, and do you guys notice like the little bird on top of the roof and wonder what's going on in his life?
No.
Yeah, I find that bizarre actually that David would say something like that, because didn't he have like more than one wife or something like that?
Yeah,
or
he had a few wives
and servants and all these kind of things.
an army, yeah, all sorts. And then he was the king as well. Like everyone knew about him.
I think sometimes knowledge can be two things. Knowledge can isolate you if you've got too much knowledge and maybe too much power as well. Maybe the opposite is true as well. Not enough knowledge, not enough power, don't even know what's going on, that could be isolating as well. But I wonder, what was going through his head, like just scenario like that.
Yeah, another thing. Go ahead, Joseph.
I think that many prophets, Bible figures often go out in nature to find peace, to find new perspective, and to find themselves and help from God, especially when they go out in nature. I think there's so many parables Jesus talked about. I think there's one just like, look at the lilies in the field, how they don't spin or toil. Aren't you more precious than they? And then, Jesus goes on to relate many stories and parables about nature. So I think, what do they say? David is after
God's own heart.
Yeah, after God's own heart. So I think that that David is finding himself in nature. Peace.
Yeah, and I think you're probably right. Like in the sense that maybe he was socially isolated. He wanted that space and that peace. Maybe he was not so much lonely. He was like a sparrow, like a lonely sparrow. And that word lonely can sometimes mean single or singular. And we know that there's a connection between feeling lonely and being socially isolated. But also sometimes there's no connection as well. We know that there's a lot of people who, because of their social isolation, they can sometimes feel lonely. It depends on the individual. But just to answer one of your questions earlier, Joseph, it says between 2001 and 2009, Australians reported an episode of loneliness was about 40%. So these people said they had one episode of loneliness in a week was about 40%. So this was between 2001 and 2009. And in the last survey in 2020, in the middle of that pandemic, there was 54% of the respondents who said that they felt more lonely since the start of the pandemic. So that's an increase of like 14%, right?
Yeah.
During that pandemic time. So I think it is something that is definitely more prevalent. And this is from the Institute of Health and Welfare. And they say that most Australians will experience loneliness at some point in their lives. So what do we do? You know, what can we do to sort of combat this as an issue?
Yeah. How did you personally overcome loneliness in your own?
I set things on fire.
You set things on fire.
Yeah. Actually, this only happened once, and there was no fireman that came. But no, I don't really get lonely anymore. That was when I was young. I was literally lonely and bored one day at home, and I started playing with a match. And lo and behold, play with fire, things will get burnt. But so busy these days. I haven't got time to be lonely. I don't know. I throw the question back to you guys. If you've been lonely, how do you overcome that?
Well, you must have overcome that, Jason, since you said you don't have that anymore. So that means, what did you do? You got busy. Is that the answer?
I got busy. I found connections. Let's say that. And you know what? I don't think that we need all these 4,999 Facebook friends. You know what I mean? I think what we really need is just maybe one or two good connections. And this is what some of the researchers are saying. You know, in terms of building meaningful connections, these are the most important things. So really what you need is one or two really deep connections. And one of the ways to do that is to just form friendships, you know, form really good friendships, people of your own peers that you can confide in, you can talk to, you can discuss issues and so on and so forth. And I think that's probably the beginning of it.
And what you mentioned earlier, Joseph, was, you know, how a lot of people can't go past, you know, a relationship on their phones. Like, if you're one of my Facebook friends, then I can have a friendship with you. But like, if you're actually being serious about this, no, I can't. And for me, like, most of my friends, like, especially like my close friends, they're too far away for me to see all the time. So a lot of the time I am communicating with them via WhatsApp Messenger, stuff like that. But the connection isn't the same. And, you know, it's like, then you start missing them and then being lonely because you miss them. So for me, it's like, I can't just go and book a ticket and go over to Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, New Zealand and see my friends. And that's really annoying. So for me, I have to make do on the phone. Would I like that? No. Would I rather go see them in person? Yes. But for me, it's going and making sure that I can have those relationships face to face. But if I must, I also can have them via a screen, which is never as good, but it's still something there. Does it truly combat the loneliness? No. Because as I said, I still miss them. And it's still like, I can't hang out with them. I can't go see them. I can't give them a hug if I'm feeling down or if they're feeling down. You know, it's like, it's not like that. It's like, I wish that they were here.
Yeah.
But they're not. So it's like, as much as that's good. And for, you know, I know a lot of people have internet friends. And that's great. But still, it's not the same as having an actual relationship with people. And I think another thing that David said in Psalm 102 is that he was like a pelican in the wilderness.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't fit in with everyone. It's like, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, I have no idea. It's like, I just don't fit in to my surroundings. Like a pelican is meant to be in the ocean, but I'm in the middle of nowhere. So it's like another thing that may, stop people from, overcoming their loneliness is I feel out of place with this company, with whatever. What do you guys think?
I think that's definitely one of the key things. Feeling out of place is probably number one, and I think this is why the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare says that the older you get, this probably doesn't apply to you guys as much because you're anyway. The older you get, the more likely you are to actually feel lonely. So those people who are in their 20s, 18 to 24, actually are 40% loneliness rate there reported among them. 25 to 34, up to 52%. Those who are 35 to 44 experience 65% chance of loneliness throughout the week. And those 45 to 54 was a 71% chance.
Wow.
That is pretty huge.
That's interesting.
It is, hey.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I guess people move on with their lives.
Maybe people just die off.
It's a connection, right? You just can't find that connection with people who are, younger than you. You can't find that connection with people who are sort of older than you. You just become your own little puppets, And
I think, you've got for me and some of my friends, we've grown up basically together. And, soon we'll get older, we'll have our own families, and then we'll kind of separate a bit. And there won't be that connection that, we had when we were younger. So it's those people that you did have, they are now not there all the time for you. And there's no longer that, connection, because they're moved on with their lives, you've moved on with your lives. So it's you don't have them to fall back on. You're alone again.
Yeah. And by the time you get to that age, they've got their own families, they're doing their own thing, they're having their own sort of midlife crisis or whatever it is. You're having your own midlife crisis. And a lot of people do at that time, they have problems with relationship problems. They may be going through divorce. They may be going through, issues in that sense. Kids, kids are now grown up, and it's a difficult time for a lot of people at that time. But increasingly, all of us can have that. In Japan, they've got something that's called the Ikigai or Ikigaya, which is.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this.
You heard?
Yes.
What have you heard?
No, go on, but I've heard of it.
I think it's the person who they're paired with, You've got someone who you're bonding with, or paired with, from a very sort of young age, and you do all these fun things together, and you grow up, you do parties, you do, you have that connection together. And oftentimes they grow old together. And, in Okinawa, this is one of the centers of longevity, and they believe most of the people, they live to be over 100 years old. And they believe that this could be one of the reasons why these people tend to live a bit longer, because they have that connection as well with that one person or two people or whatever it is. Is that what you've heard, Joseph? Something similar?
Something similar. But I wanted to answer the question you said before. How would I personally combat loneliness? And actually, most of my friends on Facebook, I know more than 1,000 friends. I only add someone if I know them in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. I don't accept any friend requests if I haven't met in person. That's my personal rule. So I think on New Year's Eve, I went out with a group of 20 odd friends from Bickley Youth Group, and they were about my age. They ranged from 16 to 24, I think. And it was a good time, and they were in the group chat, and we messaged each other, and I think I just built such a good connection, spark every time I see them. You know, it's just like, oh yeah, hi, haven't seen you such a long time, or you know, and went to the pool, have dinner, things like that. I don't know if it's just my personality or things like that, but usually friends that I know, when I see them, I do say hello. And yeah, there's this little connection that it's, for me, it's not the same. So I always have like a genuine connection with everyone in some sort of way if you're my friend. So how I would combat that is like, I pick hobbies that are social, whether it's swimming, whether it's playing ping pong, or or being in a particular group of friends that are outgoing, that don't sit inside and play games all day, but go out and have social activities. That's physical. So that's how I would combat loneliness.
Yeah. Well, just one more bit of statistics, right? Before we go into some of the things that we can do, like, you know, I know you talk about picking hobbies and stuff like that. But one of the things that we find is that as well, for people who live alone, generally tend to experience loneliness a bit more. So you need to do more outside of yourself. And would you believe it that Victoria has one of the highest households of lone persons?
Really?
Yeah, that is families without children, our families with children. Victoria's got the highest amount of that.
Do you know what the Bible says about that?
No.
The Bible says in Genesis 2:18, God says,
Good.
"It is not good that a man should be alone. I'll make him help meet for him."
Help. But is it good for women to be alone? Okay, for women to be alone?
I think that
We may be
applies
able to deal with
vice
it a bit more.
versa. So even God says so. It's not good. So.
And the other thing we notice as well is that loneliness is often linked with premature death. You didn't know that?
Yeah, you just reminded me of it just then.
Again, this is you know, so God, he knew what he was talking about, because number one, people who generally live alone or are lonely, or experience loneliness, they generally have poorer physical and mental health issues. So they don't pick hobbies that are social. They generally don't go out there and play sports and all this kind of stuff. And when you have mental illness like emotional distress, there's a higher chance of suicide, a higher chance of premature dementia, premature death, and also they take up behaviors such as drinking. You know, people who are lonely generally drink a lot more. They generally smoke more. They're generally more inactive. They sit around, they watch TV for longer, and they have poor sleep because they watch TV for like 8-10 hours, like middle of the night, 2 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock. And that has a profound effect on their biological clock. Also, they generally have poor blood pressure, diabetes, higher cholesterol.
Well, I have another interesting fact.
Yeah.
I think people who put themselves out there, who go to social groups more, have a higher chance of getting rejected, have higher chance of being made fun of, have a higher chances of being put down.
Trying to help.
No, I'm making a point here. I'm making a point.
Yeah, okay.
That have a higher chances of not being loved, that can be higher chances of being hated upon. Obviously, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to have higher chances of all these negatives also. And I think that when you love is freely given and freely taken. And I think if you want to be loved, you have to put yourself out there. And when you're trying to find someone or something like that, of course, if you don't want to be loved and you don't want to be hurt or anything, you're going to be more secluded, you'll be more to yourself, things like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's equal. It's equal both ways.
Yeah, I think so. You know what's not equal though? Is that women have a higher statistics of being lonely than men. I would think that women probably form more connection easier than men. Maybe it's connection, but not necessarily deep connections.
I don't know. I'm not the only girl on here. It's not fair because I'm young. So it's like, I guess like it depends on who you are. Because I know that some of my friends, they're just like, I don't care if, like, they're very good at making friends and they don't care about what someone thinks about them. I'm very conscious of what people think about me. So it's going to be harder for me to go and make friendships and make meaningful connections. Like sometimes I do, and sometimes like it happens very, very quickly for me sometimes. So like my best friend, her and I, we met for 2 weeks. We've only known each other for 2 weeks in person. Since then, we've never met in person.
Okay.
So for me, it's just like, okay, I know this person. I don't know them, but I still know them.
What qualifies them? I personally want to know what qualifies them to be your best friend. Is it because
we clicked?
Oh, okay.
What does that mean? Define clicked.
I don't know. Like it was weird.
Does that mean you have more similarities in common?
Yeah, I guess we did. Yeah. I was like kind of chill and easygoing, and then she was like chill and easygoing. I don't know.
So I think maybe that could be like a scientific point where like we find people who are similar, most similar to us, or we find people who are most opposite to us.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I've got another 2 friends. I became very close to them. We had met for like 2 weeks and like 1 day. Same situation. And we became really, really, really good friends.
Okay. So what are your top tips, Joe, as you mentioned earlier on about breaking this loneliness cycle?
I think my top tips would be find hobbies that are social, that that you're part of a team, that you're working towards like a common goal. So then you get familiar with the people around your group, see what they're like. Maybe you can make a friend or two. My other one is being intentional about spending time by yourself, because you need your whole focus on a particular topic or a goal, whether it be worship. It's not respectful to God or to yourself in growing if half of your attention is on your phone or on a different activity. For example, if you're on an anniversary with your partner, would you put some time not fully focused on them?
Huge. That's huge. That's so amazing. I wish you could just say that again and highlight those words, because we're just so fractionated in the way that we socialize with people, we're like, I mean, I'm a culprit. I'm pretty bad at that. I'm talking to you and I'm like I'm partially listening. I'm partially there, but that's not good. You need to be all in, particularly when you're building connections with people. If you're in, you're in. You can have some other time to socialize on your phone. Listen to the person talking. Don't just listen to them because you want to respond to what they're saying. Listen to them because you actually genuinely want to hear what they're saying. So that's huge. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to take that one on board as well.
Yeah, and I think you need to accept that putting yourself out there, that you could get hurt, that people may not like you for you or the qualities or what you stand for or what you believe in, or because of your background or this or that. You need to still put yourself out there, because I think like in any investment, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. I think this also goes the same way. Do you want to be polarizing and have great friends, or do you want to be liked by everyone but only just have superficial, not so many friends?
Yeah, I think that's the key as well, is that not everyone will like your specific flavor. Do you know what I mean? But there's some people who will love it. And so you just got to find those people who do, and then stick with those people who do, and keep that friendship going and that connection going. It's probably more worth having few good solid friendships than many sort of fake friends, I suppose. Yeah, That's pretty good, dude. I'm impressed coming from someone so young. How about you, Delphia?
Final thoughts? I'm so sorry. The
No, I just
connection
wanted
cut out.
No, that's cool. I just wanted to get your how to break this loneliness cycle. Your tips for breaking the loneliness cycle.
I don't know.
Sort
I'm probably still gonna find that. I don't know. It's work out who's like a true friend and take the meaningful connections. And like, yeah, I try to be friends with like whoever.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean I text at the max 5 people. Okay, I don't text anyone other than that in like, you know, a conversation style. But like, you know, work out who you want to be surrounded by. And like sometimes that will mean being alone.
Yes.
But as long as you know that you don't have a bad relationship or a bad friendship. So, you know, sometimes I remember reading a quote, it's like, you know, if you go and basically ghost someone, or if you just like step away and just like kind of ignore people, you'll work out who's your true friend, because there'll be people who are asking about you. And then you've also got those who don't care about what's happened to you. You know, you could be dead for all they know, and they would have no idea until, you know, years later. It's like, oh, wait, what? So I think, you know, refining friendships and working out which ones are positive and impacting you in the correct way, which will help you with your loneliness, versus just being friends with whoever. And as you were saying, Joseph, you know, making connections, making new connections is something that's really important that I don't do very much. But, you know, if you're the type of person who wants to go out there and meet new people, like, go for it, you know? And, yeah, find new people, find more meaningful connections.
You know what I think, before you go out there and find meaningful new connections, probably have a meaningful connection with yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's okay to be alone, like just getting to know yourself, you know, finding out what you like. Grab a book, sit in the hammock, read, you know, just spend that time with yourself and then find out who you are. And then you go and make meaningful connections. There's some people that are completely unaware of who they are, and they will go out there trying to find people who are similar, but then they realize, actually, these people are not similar to me. Actually, I don't know who I am, you know? So yeah, that's a great point.
And probably be honest with yourself when you do that.
I think there's a bottom line. I just want to make a similarity that in the end of time, when Jesus comes in his second coming, you can't take your friends with you to heaven, and your friend that you see going up to heaven and you're not going there, you can't hang on to their tippy toes, their legs or their hands to get a lift up to heaven. It's true that you'll be going to heaven alone and by yourself. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that really you're never alone. Jesus is there beside you, and you've got your guardian angel and God. And I think that remembering that fact is that you're never alone, and God is just only one prayer away. And then if you build that connection, learn God and know who God is by prayer, singing hymns, praising God, I think the more that you share and give, the more God will bless you and God will show himself to you that he is really there and he's by your side. And God can be your best friend, best of best friends. And that the more the more friendship you can build with God in a agape way, and there's 4 different kinds of love, but I'm not going to get into it. But the more you show love in that type of way and build a connection with God, I think your heart will be so full, because I think everyone deep down has that little hole in the heart that only God can fill, and that you can have that assurance, that ultimate peace in God when you build that connection with him.
Yeah, I like that, because we need that connection to a never changing friendship. Here on earth, yeah, your friends will get married, they'll have children, they'll go off and do their own thing, and some will get old, some will die, and that's painful. But that connection with Jesus is probably one of the most powerful ones that you can have.
Yeah.
What I realized that Jesus helps us with loneliness is that he shows us how to connect with others as well. He helps us so we can help others. And that's one of the tips I think would help to sort of break that loneliness cycle, is by helping others. If you yourself are feeling lonely, look for someone who's feeling lonely and help them. Go and do some volunteering. Go and do some, gardening for some old lady or something, helping others, we generally get a lot more out of it than we put in. And I think that's what I think.
I think doing good unto others as you would want them to do unto you. So if you are feeling lonely, and then you're like, oh, how can I don't want to be lonely anymore. I wish someone could talk to me. Pretend you're that someone that wants to talk to yourself. So do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Okay, I feel lonely right now, so I want someone to come talk to me. So actually go out there and find someone to talk to that looks lonely. And then you're like, oh, you're that person to yourself that wants to be lonely. And you just made someone else's day happier. And I think serving others is a way of helping yourself.
Definitely. And I think those 2 points are the most crucial out of everything that's been said here. Is, David, as you said, Joseph, he was a man after God's own heart. He had that connection with Christ, even though he had hard times. Sometimes, he was rock bottom, but then he was always able to find his strength in Christ again. And then, there were times where he was helped by others. Look at his second wife, Abigail. She saved him from, murdering her whole family and stuff. And, that helped him. I'm sure, then he went on to help Jonathan's son, and show kindness to him. His best friend's son, who I believe was lame, he went and showed kindness to them. And then, truly by helping others, you help yourself. And I probably mentioned it on here before as well, but, and my mum would always say to me, Delphia, friends will always disappoint. And that's why you need to have your best friend as Jesus. Because as, you guys have been saying, Christ never changes, he's the same as today, and forever, and he will never leave or forsake us. So knowing that, you can be in the middle of the desert and still be completely fine, even though you're alone. You will not be lonely because you have that forever friend.
The connection can be unbroken,
Yeah.
Internet. You don't need internet. You don't need 5G. You just need God.
Yeah, definitely. So wrapping up, what are your guys' final thoughts? Joseph, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I think number one, all in all, is definitely God is number one and Jesus is number one. And I think building a stronger relationship with God ensures your life and your love to be infinite. Number two, I think that helping those around you when you feel lowest is the best way of combating loneliness again. And then the third way is that spending your time intentionally being alone, and then intentionally being social, having those separations, don't mixing those two, and having a bit less social media, and actually going out to meet new people and risking yourself, risk it for the biscuit. And know that it's equal both ways. If you don't want to put yourself out there and you want to be contained and closed and keeping to yourself, of course that you won't get hurt, but also putting yourself out there, there's more chances of being hurt, but also another way you get more chances of making friends. So both ways is equal. And I think that putting yourself out there, I think maybe finding a local church maybe is a good way to make friends. Wanted to slide that one in there.
You just started my point there.
Oh, did I? So yeah, that's my final thoughts.
Yeah. I would say probably say yes a bit more often. You know, when people ask you, you want to come out and, you know, you want to play football or you want to do this, you want to do that. Often people who are suffering with social isolation issues, they often say, no, I've got something, you know, people, they make excuses. Saying yes more often can definitely change that for you. And one of the things to say yes to is someone invites you to a church. Go to a local church. There's statistics are showing that people are actually improving their mental health by having that social connection that comes with, you know, with the church. The church is open. And I've heard of a guy who actually just turned and says, I'm not a believer or anything. I just show up here just for the connection. And he talks to people and just, you know, just has a connection. And he keeps coming back every Sabbath, you know. What was it, Sunday? I can't remember. But you know, that connection is important, and you know, in church you'll find that it's a solid place to find, you know, people who are, you know, they God fearing, most of them, and honest, and they will have a chat with you, and they won't judge you. That's the most important thing, you know, is that you might get rejection in a lot of circles, but people in church are very happy to sort of welcome you as well and find out more about you.
And as I was saying, even if you do get rejected, remember that, you know, Christ is, you know, the one person who you can always rely on to never reject you. And how David said, you know, that he compared himself to a sparrow on top of a housetop all alone, that God cares for the sparrow. And that, you know, the birds, they don't have to go and make barns and sow and reap and all that sort of stuff. He looks after them. And so that just like pushes home that point that, yes, you may be isolated, lonely, but God still cares for you. If he cares for a little sparrow and notices it when it falls and when it, you know, dies, that, you know, you're worth more than a lot of sparrows. And, you know, he goes and considers you, you know, way more valuable than that. And he goes and knows how you're feeling. You know, you may be lonely, you may be feeling isolated, you know, whatever, depressed, anxious about what's going on, but he's always there. And, you know, he's watching out for you and he's got your back. So, and just, yeah, make meaningful connections. And sometimes, I think for some of us, we want to be alone sometimes. Like, at times I'm just like, I don't want to have text. I don't want to have anything. Like, can I just be left alone for a bit? And I just want to reiterate the point. I don't hate people. I just sometimes prefer to be by myself. But anyway, this has been a great episode, guys. And, you know, definitely, if you're able to, go and check out a local church and see if you can make some connections there. And Joseph, do you have something else to say?
I just had another thought. Sorry. We're wrapping up, but anyway, the last point I wanted to make was quality time. To make your time quality, just quality time. Because like it's easy to say meaningful connections, and it's just such a general word, but I think I just want to throw out there quality time.
Definitely. So thank you guys for your input. And this episode was sponsored once again by the Avon Valley Seventh-day Adventist Church. You can check them out and the links will be in the description. But remember to check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook, as they are our main areas where we post and are active. So thank you once again, guys. And thank you to those who joined on and listened as well. So God bless and take care.
God bless.
Bye.